Art Against Mental Illness.
We have an annual book festival in my little corner of rural Scotland. Authors and readers get together and hang out, talk to each other, participate in workshops, do presentations and panels, sell books, buy books, you know the kind of thing. Last year it was held in the cinema next door to my house. As is customary for me, and since I wasn't directly involved, it only occurred to me at the last minute that I could maybe grab some interviews with some of the authors for my little old podcast. And by last minute, I do mean last minute, the day before the festival started. Given that I'd given myself no time to prepare, my only strategy was to turn up with a laptop and a mic and attempt to abduct unsuspecting authors to a quiet corner in the hopes that they'd talk to me. It turned out finding the authors was the easy bit, because, as I discovered, authors really like to talk about their trade. But book festivals are not the oasis of calm you might expect. Be warned, some of the following sound bites have quite a lot of background noise. Anyway, I spent my day lurking around the author's green room and managed to coerce, cajole or otherwise convince authors to come and talk to me. And talk they did, which was nice, since I hadn't prepared any questions in advance and knew nothing about any of the authors before sitting down with them. What transpired were some of the most interesting conversations I've ever had. You see, it turns out that not only are authors adept at putting words down in print, they can also speak them out loud too, and have a tendency to say really interesting things when given the chance. Who knew? And it turns out that my lack of preparedness worked quite well. Since I knew nothing about these authors' works and the characters and the themes within, all I could really ask about was the process, practice and art of writing, which was exactly what I wanted and needed to talk about. As it turned out, it's something that the authors wanted to talk about too, a whole lot. So they were quite enthusiastic to talk to me about it. Each interview lasted about 15 minutes, and having listened back to them all, I realised that they are all fascinating in their own way. So rather than try to edit them all into one mega episode, I've decided to release them all as a mini-series over the next few weeks. What follows is a compilation of some of my favourite bits as a sort of amuse-bouche to the main course. It's worth noting that all these authors are Scottish, not exactly surprising given where the event was held. I think this little cross-section of the British literary community goes a long way to representing the diversity and proud ancient literary heritage of this incredible little nation. So I'll shut up and let you enjoy what the experts think about the art of words. I'll return once you've had some time to digest them all with some closing thoughts. Enjoy.
Art Against Mental Illness.
Hi, my name's Anne McKinnon and I'm a poet. So I really think poetry, anybody can write it. I mean, some people think that it's got to rhyme or it's got to have certain things in it, but I don't think so. I think if you capture a piece of emotion, and I also find it's a very cathartic thing, it gets a lot of emotions out. And, you know, I do think it's a great thing, poetry. A poem should just speak. Whatever you're saying, it should just speak to people. And I don't think it needs to be technically accurate.
I'm George Patterson. I'm a writer, a broadcaster and a former musician. Well, I read a book when I was on holiday a couple of weeks ago by an author who's long dead. And I've been wanting to read this book for a while, and it resonated so much with me. And it kept me awake at night. It was that important to me. Things were resonating from every line. It was just cracking my head open. And I desperately wanted to reach out to the author, but the author's dead. Has been dead for a number of years. But it reminded me, as what you've just said there, this art goes on forever.
Yeah.
It never ends. It will find its people. It will find its tribe somewhere.
Yeah.
All you've got to do is you've got to be honest with yourself, and you've got to stick with what you believe in, because you will find the people that were meant to find you.
Yeah.
I don't know who you make your art for, but I make my art for me.
Yeah, me.
So I'm number one.
Yeah.
So if I'm happy with it, then I'll allow myself to share it with other people. If I'm not happy with it, then I'll not share it at the moment. But it's like, consider yourself a footballer, right? You do all your training. You don't have to share all your training methods and your training techniques and the hours and hours you spend on the training ground. It's the 90 minutes you're playing football in. That's what they'll get to see. And they'll get to see your piece of art or my book, that's what they'll get to see. They don't need to see the rest of it. That's part of my process. If you want it, if you're interested in it, we'll talk about it, sure. But it's not as important to you as it is to me.
Hi Alex, I'm Val Penny and I write crime fiction. I started writing crime fiction when I was recovering from cancer.
Okay.
I was being treated for cancer, and it's a very worrying and depressing kind of time. I was really quite ill. And I don't know if you've tried to watch daytime television, but it didn't hold my interest for very long. And I didn't have the energy to do the things I like to do, like swimming, visiting with friends, seeing family. I had no immune system because of the drugs that were helping me recover. And so I turned to reading, which is what I enjoy that I could do. The problem was that I kept telling my husband about the books I was reading, about whether they were good books, about whether they were bad books, about what made them good, about what made them bad. And eventually he said to me, look, if you know so much about what makes a good book, why don't you just write one? And I thought, challenge accepted. So it took me about 2.5 years, but I did write my first book, Hunter's Chase.
Okay, it's really, well basically what I'm hearing from today, it's like really easy to become a published author.
Well, you know, it's a lot easier than it used to be.
Yes.
Because there are far more small publishing houses than there ever used to be.
Yeah.
And also the ability to self-publish is available to people. What I would commend to any of your listeners who are thinking of self-publishing is do not skimp on an editor. Get an editor who knows your genre, who is really quite critical, and who will say to you, no, this paragraph doesn't work. You can take out that chapter. You do not need that character. You need a brutal editor, especially with the first book. And even if you're self-publishing, it will cost you money. It will cost several £100s, but it is worth getting an editor, a good editor. I was what they call a pantser, in that I write by the seat of my pants.
Oh, right.
And that's how Hunter's Chase was written, because I didn't know what I was doing. It was my first novel. I had not a clue. But I then met a novelist by the name of Sue Moorcroft, and she writes romantic women's fiction, totally different genre. But what she did do was explain how she sets out her novels beforehand. So she actually produces a background. And so I have now become much more organised, much more structured in how I approach it. I'll write the background, I'll write the bones of the work, and then I'll put the flesh on it and make the story. I require time for my writing. When I had a real job, I used to long for the day when I could have a job that started at 11 and finished at 4 and had an hour for lunch. And now I have that. So, and I think even if you only have a couple of half hours a day, if writing is your thing, write. Because if you write a couple of 100 words a day, then it doesn't take very long before you have 2,000 words, 20,000 words, 60,000 words, and you have a novel.
So I'm here with Pauline. Pauline, tell us about yourself.
Hi, thank you for having me. I am a multi-award winning and best-selling children's picture book author and romantic suspense novelist. I'm not one of those authors who can just grab half an hour here and there, you know, do something at lunchtime and walk away from it and come back and do 20 minutes later on. I can't do that. I shut myself in my writing room, and I would ideally will spend 3 days a week in there, one after the other, and I'm out of there. I'm probably out there at 7:45 in the morning, and the brain sort of switches off about 2 o'clock, and then I've got to go and do something different. But I need quiet. I've got the writing room at the bottom of the garden, so I leave the house, I go out there, there's no distractions, and it's just me and the laptop, and I just get lost in the world. It's quite cathartic, it's quite therapeutic. I just get lost in whether, even if I'm writing the suspenseful side of the novels, it's still therapeutic. You know, the words are just pouring out of you, and it's
You're in the zone.
In the zone.
Part of me thinks that the children's book bit would be easier because there's less words, but I think from what you're saying,
yeah, it is. When you're writing a novel, you know, I'm an adult writing for adults, so I am sitting at the laptop, I'm tinkling on the keys, and I'm writing in the language that I use. When you write a picture book, you've got to pull it right back. You've got to take your language right back to, you know, are you writing for 3 to 5s or are you writing for 5 to 7s? You've got to hit your vocabulary. You've also got to get your whole story told in up to 850 words. You've got to sort of follow the arc. You've got to get character development in there. You've got to get your story in there. You've got to get your happy conclusion in there. You've got to get your positive morals in there for modern day publishing. So I can rattle out a few thousand words of my novel in a day, but I'm going back and forward over a picture book, because also with a picture book you're thinking of the illustrations, you're thinking of the visuals, you're thinking about page turns, you're thinking about where reveals are on page turns, so the structure is completely different.
Hello, my name's Keith Broomfield. I'm a nature writer. I write weekly nature columns for several newspapers. I also write books. I've written several books on wildlife. It's not possible to go out for a walk and not see nature. It's there, it's omnipresent, it's all around us. And okay, you might not see a golden eagle, it might not be something people class as exciting, but you're going to see snails or insects or butterflies or plants. If you just walk in the centre of Edinburgh, you get these plants growing in the cracks in the pavement, so that's nature.
Yeah.
And incredible resilience of nature. And I write about this in Wild Edinburgh, and there's the cobblestones in Newtown, there's pineapple weed and plantains growing in the cracks. And a lot of people might not like seeing the thing that makes the city look a bit scruffy, but I actually enjoy seeing how nature is living on our doorsteps.
Nature is resourceful and it's resilient. Yeah. And so I love spring. I love spring because winter's got its charms. Right, but once a year you get this show. Nature puts on a show of colour and just growth and renewal. And for me, it's like Disneyland comes to me every year for free, right? And I don't have to queue because I do not like queuing. And it's just the most spectacular thing. And I think people just don't notice it. They're like sitting there on their phones thinking, oh, I'm going on holiday to bloody Spain in 2 months. And that's what they're thinking about. I'm like, are you kidding me? Look around you. It's the most amazing thing. And I agree with you. It doesn't matter where you are. It's happening every single inch of every space in every part of every country, I guess. But yeah.
I have an idea for a book, but I don't have a rigid plan. I'm going to do this in chapter 1, this in chapter 2, chapter 3. It just kind of evolves. Because what I've done in chapter 3 will leads on to chapter 4. It's just kind of that kind of evolution, and that's how the books works. So that works for me. I don't know if that's a good thing to do or a bad thing, but I find that works for me. I just like to kind of, obviously the book drifts as I kind of move into different chapters and different segments of nature.
Art Against Mental Illness.